We have major breaking news.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Let's go to our senior White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny. Jeff, tell our viewers what you're learning.
Wolf, certainly an interesting development here. Within the last few moments, President Trump stuck his head into the White House briefing room and said that there would be a major announcement coming this evening. He said around 7 o'clock, presumably Eastern time, from South Korea. He said there would be a major announcement. He was speaking as a few reporters, including me, walked up to him, and I said, Mr. President, what is the announcement going to be on? And he said, North Korea. So we are hearing from the president directly that he said South Korea is going to be making a major announcement about North Korea, of course, the nuclear ambitions, etc., tonight at 7 p.m. Of course, Wolf, this comes on the heels of some meetings over here this afternoon. The South Korea delegation has been here meeting with officials. We did not have a readout of the outcome of those meetings, but the president deciding to make this announcement himself. We tried to answer or ask him other questions about this. He smiled, he waved, and he walked back into the wing of the White House. But for about, I would say, 20 seconds or so, he made this announcement. Very unusual, Wolf. It's the first time I can recall the president coming into the briefing room since he's been in office, and certainly the first time making any type of announcement like this. Of course, it was in a bit of a dramatic fashion. People were rushing around. We do not know what the substance of this is. We're checking with White House aides right now to see if they can shed any more light on this. But again, all the president saying as though he was essentially issuing a preview or a commercial, if you will, to tune in at 7 o'clock, he says, for a major announcement from South Korea. So he says that's all we know right now.
Yeah, he says the South Koreans will have an announcement around 7 p.m. Eastern time, which is, hours, it's already going to be Friday over there in Seoul, South Korea. It comes on this day when just a few hours ago, there was a very high-level delegation from South Korea that came over to the West Wing of the White House. The delegation that included individuals who met with Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang just days ago. They came here to Washington, we're told, to deliver a specific message from Kim Jong-un to the United States, specifically to President Trump himself. We showed our viewers some video of that delegation arriving over there at the West Wing of the White House. What, if anything, do we know? I assume the president learned something from this delegation, and as a result, he's telling us, get ready for a major announcement on North Korea from South Korea around 7 p.m. Eastern.
Wolf, this would certainly seem to be related. The president did not say that specifically, but it certainly comes on a day, in fact, just hours after the delegation arrived here. And it does come just several days after the president was expressing a new level of optimism that North Korea would be willing to discuss the future of their nuclear weapons and the regime. The president did not say specifically it was about this meeting. I asked him if it was about, the subject. We tried pressing him, and he would not give any more than that. He certainly seemed to be relishing the idea that he was making this announcement. There were not any cameras there, at least as far as I know. I was standing about, I would say, 2 feet or so from him, Wolf, but he said it was about North Korea, not anything else. So the reality here, though, is, Wolf, this is something that the president has certainly changed his tone on, which is a sign that there have been some serious discussions underway behind the scenes. We have not seen the president talk about Rocket Man. We've not seen him talking about fire and fury, unlike the world has ever seen. And of course, that was his very aggressive posture that he was taking some months ago. So he certainly has modulated his words and speaking toward Kim Jong-un. So we will see, A, what this announcement is, and B, what, if anything, the U.S. had to do with it, Wolf. But certainly an interesting preview, if you will, from the president himself.
Yeah, it's clearly something the president is happy about. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done. We're showing our viewers a picture when he simply walked into the briefing room over there, the press briefing room at the White House, to tell reporters, get ready. There will be an announcement from South Korea around 7 p.m. Eastern. He didn't say what that announcement would be, but clearly he said it would involve North Korea. But I don't think the president would have walked into that briefing room to tell reporters, get excited about an announcement if he wasn't pleased with what that announcement was going to be. I'm going to let you go. Right. Jeff, I know you're going to work your sources. We'll try to find out what the South Korean announcement is. The president getting everyone anticipating that announcement. We'll get back to you as soon as you get more information. We're checking with our bureau in Seoul, South Korea as well, and elsewhere to see what this South Korean announcement about North Korea entails. Jeff Zeleny, thanks very much. Ruben Gallego is a member of the House Armed Services Committee. You guys spent a lot of time worrying about the Korean Peninsula, the nuclear threat. You were just there. Clearly, the president is excited about this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done this extraordinary thing. He personally went into the briefing room and told reporters, get excited.
Well, first of all, I hope this is good news. I mean, I think we all like to see a stable Korean peninsula and a stable, just in general, Far East. I think it's a little odd that the president's treating this like it's, the announcement of who's getting fired on The Apprentice. This is a very serious issue for very serious consequences. I think he should treat it in a presidential manner that it deserves. But again, I hope this is good news. We need good news out there. It is a very dangerous situation that has not been handled very well. Are
you encouraged that there was this direct dialogue now between North Korea and South Korea, a South Korean delegation, high-ranking intelligence officials, among others, going to Pyongyang and actually sitting down with Kim Jong-un and now coming to Washington to deliver a message from the North Korean leader?
Certainly encourage, I think, but we also have to recognize the history of North Korea playing these types of games where they will, basically talk about peace, but in the meantime still continue either developing their weapons or essentially, just restarting at a later point. But again, I hope this is good news. I think for this country, for the world, we want to see stability over there, and I'm anxious to hear what happens.
Yeah, we're working our sources here in Washington, in Seoul, South Korea, in Beijing, elsewhere to try to figure out what the president is talking about. He simply stuck his head into the briefing room and said to reporters, there will be an announcement from South Korea. Let's see what that announcement is. Congressman Gallego, thanks, as usual, for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.
We're staying on top of the breaking news. Much more right after this. We're standing by for what President Trump says will be a major announcement from a South Korean delegation that's been visiting the White House today and just came from Pyongyang, North Korea. I quickly want to go to CNN's Will Ripley. He's joining us from Seoul, South Korea right now. What are you learning about this announcement, Will?
Wolf, I've just learned from a former senior U.S. official that what the South Koreans delivered, and it was very top secret, was a letter from Kim Jong-un to President Trump inviting the president for a meeting with the North Korean leader. This is hugely significant, and this is also an indication that Kim Jong-un is really pushing forward with this diplomatic path. He feels that President Trump was leaning more towards military action, tightening up on the sanctions, so now the North Koreans telling Trump they're willing to talk, they're willing to meet, and that's what was expected to be delivered in this message that the South Koreans brought over from Seoul to Washington, Wolf.
Elise Labott is with us as well. We'll stand by for a moment. Elise, you're our global affairs correspondent. You're getting additional information about what else may be announced.
Well, Wolf, in addition to that meeting that Kim Jong-un offered, something we understand from our sources that the North Koreans have been weighing since President Trump got elected. We also understand that in that letter, Kim Jong-un offered to suspend nuclear and missile tests. That's the kind of step that the U.S. has been looking for to enter those negotiations. U.S. officials do tell us, though, this will not change the planned military exercises between the U.S. and South Korea scheduled for next month. We do also hear from our sources that National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster will be briefing the UN Security Council on Monday about these developments, Wolf.
Very significant, potentially very significant developments. Leon Panetta is with us as well still, the former defense secretary, the former CIA director. What do you think, Mr. Secretary, about these late-breaking developments? We'll get formal word in the next several minutes.
Well, it's extremely interesting to know that Kim Jong-un has issued an invitation to the president. But I would be very cautious about this. Number one, the president needs to know this can't just be a photo op with a political candidate. He's meeting with Kim Jong-un, who's threatened to annihilate the United States. And so he's going to have to lay some groundwork here. I think he should talk to our allies, to the South Korean president, to the Japanese, even to the Chinese and others, to get a sense of whether or not there's a benefit here or something that could be could create some difficult consequences. Secondly, I think he's got to have if he does go through with this, he's going to have some very firm talking points about what the United States' position is. And if he just walks in there and is not fully prepared in terms of what our strategy is, then I think that could have the wrong consequences in terms of the impact. So if he lays the proper groundwork with our allies, if he has a firm strategy as to where the United States will go on negotiations, then I think this is worth considering.
We're showing our viewers live pictures from outside the West Wing of the White House, Mr. Secretary. We're expecting this announcement from the leader of the South Korean delegation, who has briefed officials in the White House and is about to walk out and make this announcement. Would you advise President Trump, if there isn't in fact an invitation from Kim Jong-un for a meeting, would you advise the president to go ahead and sit down face to face and meet with the North Korean leader?
I would only advise that if I felt that the president had sat down and really considered what the consequences of this kind of meeting could be. I just think this is a serious moment. And it's not just something where the president is going to show up and they do a photo op. Make no mistake about it, Kim Jong-un will have some very determined talking points about what he would like to achieve in a negotiation. And I think before the president walks in that room, the president has to be fully prepared in terms of what the position of the United States and South Korea and our allies is going to be in that kind of negotiation. If he's comfortable with that, and if we've established that kind of strategy, then as I said, yes, it's something to seriously consider.
As you know,
when, how it should take place.
They've already announced that Kim Jong-un will have a meeting with the South Korean president, President Moon, along the demilitarized zone, I think as early as next month. So clearly the South Korean government is anxious for this kind of dialogue, and they're the key U.S. ally on the Korean Peninsula, of course.
They are, and they've obviously had meetings personally with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. And the South Korean president obviously wants to pursue these negotiations. So I think all of that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we're in a much better path here in terms of trying to negotiate some kind of resolution here. But for the President of the United States to now engage with the leader of North Korea, I think if it's going to happen, everybody's got to think long and hard about what kind of strategy are we going to try to pursue, what are our key talking points here, what do we want to achieve? And if we feel comfortable with all of that, then I say yes, it's probably worth pursuing, particularly if it's done in conjunction with the president of South Korea.
All right, Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for joining us. Leon Panetta joining us on this important breaking news story. Let's bring in our panel, and John Kirby, let me get your thoughts. The president, as recently as January, was asked, would you be willing to speak, have phone talks with Kim Jong-un? And he says, sure, I always believe in talking, but we have a very firm stance. Look, you know what it is. We're very firm, but I would be absolutely, I would do it. No problem with that at all. So potentially a dialogue between Kim Jong-un and President Trump could be in the works.
Yeah, potentially. And if it happens, as Secretary Panetta said, that would be enormously helpful and productive. And it may be what's required to actually get some sort of meaningful peace agreement or arrangement on the peninsula. But the only thing I'd add to Secretary Panetta's very, very sage advice is you got to start building a framework for getting to those talks. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing that you jump on the plane tomorrow. You got to have lower level meetings and discussions and really sort of flesh out what confidence building measures need to be put in place before you can safely and prudently put your president across the table from Kim Jong-un.
You know, Gloria, the president clearly is very excited about this. He came into the White House briefing room and told reporters, get ready, there will be an announcement, a major announcement by the South Koreans at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Right, a big reveal, and we don't know, we're not quite sure what it is. We don't know whether the president will agree. We don't know whether this is just going to be something that they might agree to do at some time in the future. As Elise was talking about before, it seems that they've said, okay, we're going to stop testing our nuclear missiles as a precondition of this. You know that the United States has been talking about total denuclearization of North Korea, and whether that would be enough for a sit-down remains to be seen. I mean, we are assuming the president will respond positively, but we have to wait. We have to wait and see exactly what his preconditions are for any kind of a meeting. Where would it be, and when would it be, and what would have to occur from our point of view before any such meeting could take place.
Everybody stand by. We're getting more information. We're awaiting the official announcement from the South Korean delegation over at the White House. You see the cameras are there. The microphones are there. They'll be walking out very soon. We'll have live coverage right after this.